Hi everyone, if you haven't had the chance to check out my smash hit series Echoes of Decay, I'll put the link in the description below. It's available at paperback, ebook, and it's also an audible. Now if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button below. Now let's get into the Apocalypse Files. The Man Who Kept Smiling After He Turned. A story from the Apocalypse Files. I knew he was dead because his eyes had gone cloudy. Not in the way they do in films when they turn milky all at once. They started at the edges, a pale ring swallowing the colour. His pupils looked like something had dragged a thumb through wet paint, but the smile stayed exactly the same. He was standing on the other side of the sports hall doors, forehead pressed to the narrow glass panel, teeth bared in this wide, fixed grin. His lips were torn from where he'd bitten through them, gums black, a smear of dried blood reaching one cheek, like a child's finger painting. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe properly either, just that odd, wet hitch in his chest every so often, like his body was pretending to remember how. Behind him, in the dim corridor, I could see shapes shifting in the dark. More of them, pressing closer, shuffling, bumping shoulders. But none of them came to the glass. They gave him space. He stared at me as if we were alone. I locked my jaw so my teeth wouldn't chatter and kept the rifle pointed at his chest. It made me feel better, even though I knew it wouldn't do much. He tilted his head a fraction, and the smile somehow widened, cracks opening in the skin at the corners of his mouth. I don't know why I said it out loud. Maybe because there was no one left to hear. "Tom," I whispered, "stop it." The dead man on the other side of the glass twitched, like the name had moved something deep inside him. For a heartbeat, I thought the smile faltered. Then he tapped the glass. Just once, a gentle, almost polite knock. His hand was grey now, nails dark, fingers just wrong. He'd been like this for 3 days. 3 days since he turned. 3 days since he started smiling. 3 days since I realised we had never understood what this infection was doing to people. Because the dead were supposed to be mindless. And Tom looked like he was enjoying himself. Before he turned. If you'd asked me, before all this, what sort of person would keep smiling after they died, Tom wouldn't have been my first guess. I met him at the leisure centre, long before it became a temporary emergency shelter, and then just a tomb. He'd been on the reception back then, the first face you saw when you came in for a swim or a game of five-a-side football. Early 30s, thin in hair and a bit soft around the middle. Always had a joke ready, the sort of bloke who remembered your name even if you'd only been there twice. He wasn't the one making the announcements when the virus hit. He wasn't important enough for that. But he was there when the council decided to convert the leisure centre into a hub. He was there when the soldiers rolled up with fencing and floodlights and temporary cots. He was there when the first waves of evacuees came through, clutching children and rucksacks and whatever else they could carry. He was there when the first infected stumbled into the car park and the soldiers shot it. And he was there when the soldiers didn't come back from patrol one night, leaving us with the fences and the floodlights and the cots, and no one to tell us what to do. We had maybe 50 people holed up inside by then. Families, pensioners, a couple of teenagers who'd been caught bunking school, me, Tom, and a nurse named Jenny, who'd been seconded to help run the place. Jenny became the doctor pretty quickly, because she was the closest thing we had left. I became security, because I'd done a weekend course in volunteering with the club, and I knew where they kept the keys to the equipment cupboard. Tom stayed at reception. The computers were all dead, the phone lines were useless, but he sat there anyway behind the desk with a clipboard, meticulously writing down who went where, which families were in which squash court, which stores we'd raided and when. "Got to keep things organised," he said with that easy grin of his. "End of the world's no excuse for shabby paperwork." He smiled a lot back then, but it looked different. softer. It reached his eyes. That's how I know the thing on the other side of the glass isn't just a memory of a habit. It's something else. The bite. It happened on a Tuesday. Or at least, we were still pretending to keep track of days, and that's just what we called it. By then, the fences outside were mostly doing their job. The infected shuffled along them sometimes, pressing grey hands to the chain link like they were trying to remember what it felt like to push open a gate. But they didn't pile up in huge numbers. Not then. We'd worked out a system. 2 people on roof duty at all times, watching the streets, 2 people at the main doors, and everyone else inside, quiet as they could be. There were still supply runs, of course. We had tinned food left by the council, but not enough. So small groups went out during the day, creeping through the side streets, hitting the shops that hadn't already been stripped bare. That morning, it was me, Tom, and Jenny. We argued about taking more people. Jenny wanted at least 4, safety in numbers. I said the more bodies we had, the more noise we made. Tom, as usual, sided with whoever sounded more tired. You're both right, he said, which is deeply unhelpful. So we compromise. 3 of us, in and out, no heroics, back in time for lunch, and no dying hungry. He laughed when he said that. It's funny in retrospect. The chemist at the end of the high street was our target. We'd been putting it off because the windows there were intact, but covered from the inside. Could have meant infected trapped in there. Could have meant nothing. Could have meant someone had beat us to it. But we needed painkillers, antibiotics, bandages, things to patch up the sort of stupid cuts and bruises that could kill you now, just as effectively as a bite. So we went. We moved slow, avoided the main road, cut behind the post office, past the little row of terraces where someone had spray painted "We are not sick" on a bedsheet and hung it from the upstairs window. The sheet was half torn now, no sign of the people. The chemist door was locked, as expected. Tom stepped forward and peered through the glass. It looks clear, he muttered. Can't see anyone shambling about, just shelves, and shelves, and shelves. Oh, and a cardboard cutout of that bloke from the telly. Creepy, but I reckon we can take him. Jenny frowned. We don't know what's in the back. We never do, he said. Isn't that half the fun? He dug through his pockets and found the ring of keys he'd been given when the council still thought they'd be running this place officially. He tried 3 before finding the one that turned the lock. The bell above the door jangled when we went in. The sound seemed obscenely loud. We all froze. Nothing moved. The air smelled of dust and stale perfume. See? Tom whispered. Piece of cake. I'll grab anything labelled miracle cure, and we'll... And that was when I heard it. A faint, wet shuffling sound from behind the counter. Jenny must have heard it too, because she lifted the metal bar and moved to check. I saw her shoulders tense and then relax. It's all right, she said quietly. False alarm. It's just... The thing that lurched into view had once been the pharmacist. The white coat was torn and stained. One sleeve hung empty. Threads trailing where an arm used to be. His jaw was wrong, dislocated somehow. His head lolled sideways, like the muscles in the neck had given up. Jenny stumbled back, hand flying to her mouth. The pharmacist's remaining arm shot out, quicker than it should have been able to, fingers curling around her sleeve. I moved automatically, stepping forward, raising the crowbar I carried. Tom was quicker. He didn't even hesitate. One moment he was beside me, the next he'd vaulted the counter, like we were back in the old world and he was playing some kind of hero in a video game. He slammed into the pharmacist, wrenching him away from Jenny, twisting them both to the floor. For a second, I thought he'd managed it. He had his forearm braced against the infected man's throat. He was shouting something I couldn't hear over the rush of blood in my ears. Then the pharmacist's head dipped. Teeth sank into Tom's wrist, right where the glove ended. Tom screamed. He yanked his arm free so hard I heard something tear, and brought his other arm down with the crowbar in a wild, desperate arc. The pharmacist's skull gave way with a sickening crunch. By the time I reached them, Jenny had already grabbed Tom's arm. Blood was pouring from the bite. The skin looked shredded and chewed. Tom stared at it, breaths coming in ragged gasps. "Oh," he said, almost conversationally, "that's not great." Jenny's face was white. "Back to the centre," she said, "now." Tom looked at me. His eyes were wide, frightened, but his mouth twitched up at the corners. "On the bright side," he said, forcing a chuckle, "I don't have to go on any more supply runs, yeah?" There's nothing quite like walking home with someone you know is going to die. We moved fast. Jenny tied a scarf tight around the wound, but the blood still soaked through. Tom's footsteps got heavier, and his jokes got weaker. By the time the leisure centre came into view, he was leaning on my shoulder. "Don't tell them yet," he whispered. "Let me walk in on my own 2 feet. Don't want to start a panic." As if there was anything else we'd been living in for months. We slipped in through the fire door at the side, straight into the old spin studio. Jenny had commandeered it as an infirmary. The window blinds were drawn, the mirrors were cracked from when someone had punched them earlier on, sick of seeing what they looked like in this emergency lighting. We sat Tom on a yoga mat. Jenny peeled the makeshift bandage away. The bite was ugly, deep, already darkening at the edges in a way that didn't look right at all. "How long do you reckon I've got?" Tom asked quietly. Jenny's hand shook. "We don't know if—" "We do," he said gently. "We all know the rules by now, Doc. Get bitten, you change. Maybe not straight away, but you do." Then he looked at me. "Do me a favour, mate." I swallowed. "Anything. If I start losing it, if I go all teeth and no manners, you know," he swallowed. "Don't let me hurt anyone, yeah? End it quick." Jenny jerked like he'd slapped her. "Let's not start there," she said sharply. "We don't even know exactly how it processes, how long it takes. You might not even—" "Jenny," Tom said softly, "please." They stared at each other. She looked away first. I'll sedate you," she said. "I've got some stuff left. We'll restrain you, just in case. We'll monitor what happens. If you're willing, we might actually learn something that could help everyone else." Tom closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, he was smiling. "Scientifically useful at the end. My mum would be proud." We tied him to one of the heavy benches we dragged in from the gym. Nothing that would dig into his skin too badly. We weren't animals. Ropes around ankles, wrists, and a belt across his chest. He cracked jokes the whole time. "If you told me I'd end up tied to a bench in a dark room with 2 attractive people watching me closely, I'd have made more of an effort to do my hair," he said. It was only when Jenny slid the needle into his arm that his smile faltered. "You'll just drift," she said. "You might feel a bit groggy, that's all." "Promise you'll be here when I wake up?" he asked. "Of course," she replied. He gave her a look I couldn't quite read. "Don't promise things you can't keep," he muttered, "but thanks." The sedative took hold quickly. His eyes closed, his breathing slowed. Jenny set up a little notebook on the metal trolley. "Time of bite, approximately 11:40, she muttered, writing, "Sedative at 12:06. Bite site already discoloured. No other symptoms yet. Will observe." Someone had to tell the others, and that someone turned out to be me. There were arguments, of course. A few people demanded we shoot Tom straight away. Others insisted we throw him out the centre before he changed. 2 teenagers suggested, in all seriousness, that maybe we cut the arm off and see if that stopped it. In the end, it was Jenny's calm that won out. "We need to know how long it takes," she said, tone flat. "We need to know what happens first. We need to know if there's any way to intervene. If we throw away that chance, the next person who gets bitten dies for nothing." "And what if he gets loose?" one of the fathers snapped. "He won't," I said. "I'll be watching." Which is how I ended up in a folding chair in the infirmary, hours later, staring at my friend as the infection ate away through him. The first thing that changed wasn't his eyes, it was his mouth. He was still sedated when the corners twitched, a tiny movement, barely noticeable. If I hadn't been staring, I'd have missed it. His lips parted just enough to show the edge of his teeth. Not a grimace, not a spasm. A smile. "Jenny," I called quietly. "Jenny." You might want to see this. She came over, pen ready, and watched. The smile grew. His eyes stayed shut, his breathing stayed slow, but his mouth stretched wider and wider, until I was sure something would tear. It didn't. Jenny's pen trembled against the page. Subject began smiling approximately 3 hours after bite, she whispered. No sign of waking, no other motor activity. Is that normal? I asked. She just gave me a look. Tell me what normal is, and I'll answer. We expected thrashing, growling, that mindless animal snapping we'd seen from the infected defences. When Tom woke up, he did none of those things. He just opened his eyes. For a second, they looked exactly like they always had. Brown, tired, amused. Then the colour started to fade from the edges inwards, like frost spreading across a window. He blinked once. The smile stayed. Tom? I said carefully. His gaze slid over to me. When he spoke, his voice sounded like it had been dragged up from the bottom of a well. All right, mate, he croaked. Jenny made a strangled noise. You're conscious, she stammered. Can you feel the bite? Any pain? Tom glanced at his bandaged wrist. Then he laughed. It was a horrible sound. Too high, too bright. Feels brilliant, he said. Like pins and needles in your whole body. Like when your foot wakes up, you know, all fizzy. His eyes rolled back for a moment in what looked disturbingly like pleasure. Jenny swallowed. You understand what's happening to you? She asked. Of course I do, he said. You sedated me, tied me up. 50 Shades. Except, I'm pretty sure this ends with cannibalism, instead of whatever this thing was. He giggled. I felt my skin crawl. This isn't funny, I said. The smile didn't waver. Isn't it? He said softly. I think it's hilarious. His gaze drifted to Jenny. You're scared, he muttered. I can hear it. She took a step back. You can hear what? Your heart, he said. Everyone's like drums in another room. I thought I would be. But it's soft, it's soothing. It gives me a feeling. He shut his eyes briefly, breathing in. I can smell them too, he added. All of them. Through the walls. Dozens of little lights, warm and flickering. His tongue darted across his teeth. The smile never left. Tom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, do you feel the urge to, you know? He tilted his head. To eat you? I nodded, throat dry. He considered. Not exactly, he said. It's not like hunger, stomach hunger. It's more like you're all magnets, and I'm a bit of metal, and I want to be closer, be inside the pull. He shivered. But I can hold off, he added, almost proudly. For now, because we're mates. Jenny scribbled furiously, hands shaking. This is unprecedented, she muttered. Retained speech, memory, sense of humour. Tom beamed. See? Never say I don't give you anything. He strained slightly against the restraints. The ropes creaked. But you should hurry, he added cheerfully. It's getting louder. Word got out, of course. You can't hide something like that in a building full of frightened people. Some refused to come near the infirmary. Others hovered in the doorway, peering like visitors in a zoo. Tom performed for them. He told jokes, asked after their families, commented on how they smelled. Always smiling, always watching. Kids cried whenever they saw him. Adults tried not to. I stayed beside him as much as I could, partly because I'd promised, and partly because I was terrified of what would happen if we left him alone. At night, when the emergency lights cast everything in that dull orange glow, I watched his face. Sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, the smile faded. Not all the way, just enough for the muscles in his cheeks to slacken, the corner of his mouth to droop. In those moments, His expression looked strained, like someone trying very hard to keep the mask in place. Once, just before dawn, his eyes flickered to mine. "Still me in here, you know," he whispered. "Then stop smiling," I whispered back. He tried. I saw the effort. His jaw trembled. His forehead frowned. For a second, his lips pressed together. Then they peeled apart again, dragged by some invisible hook, stretched into that same wide grin. "Can't," he whispered between his teeth. "It likes it when I do." My blood ran cold. "What does?" I asked. He stared at the ceiling. "The thing that's listening," he said softly. "The thing that's learning." On the third night, the infected started to gather at the fence. Not ones that had seen us, not ones that we'd attracted with noise. They came shambling out of side streets and alleyways, converging on the leisure centre, like flowing water downhill. We watched from the roof, Jenny and I, hearts hammering. Dozens of them, maybe more, pressed against the chain link, hands curling around the metal. Some sniffed the air. Some leaned their faces to the gaps as if trying to inhale the heat from inside. But they didn't howl or claw, or throw themselves at the fence the way we'd seen others do. They just waited. "Something's drawing them," Jenny whispered. I thought of Tom downstairs smiling. We went back down together. He knew we were coming before we opened the door. His head was turned towards it, smile shining in that dim light. "They're here," he sing-songed as we stepped in. "Can you hear them, like rain on a roof?" Jenny swallowed. "What are they doing?" she asked. "Listening," he said, "same as me." "Listening to what?" He just giggled. "Shh," he said, "you'll miss the good bit." By morning, the fence was buckling. The infected still weren't raging at it, but there were so many bodies leaning, pressing, breathing that the post started to tilt. People panicked. Arguments turned violent. "Kill him," someone shouted. "It's him they're coming for." "Use him," others muttered. "Put him in front of the fence and maybe they'll stay there." Jenny wanted to state him again, study what happened when he was unconscious. I don't know what I wanted. To turn back time, maybe? But in the end, the decision was made for us. The power went out. Not just a flicker this time, it died completely. The emergency lights sputtered and failed. The hum of the backup generator that had been our constant background noise was silent. The building plunged into darkness. People screamed. Torches flicked on, and shadows jumped. In the confusion, someone opened the wrong door. By the time we realised the faint, wet footsteps echoing down the corridor weren't one of ours, it was too late. Tom stood in the doorway of the infirmary, ropes dangling from his wrists like chewed snakes. The belt that had held his chest down hung in two pieces. He smiled at us in the torchlight, teeth slick with fresh blood. "Oh, good," he said. "You're both here." We backed away automatically. "Tom," I said, raising a rifle, "don't move." He cocked his head. "You won't shoot me," he said, pleasantly. "You promised you'd make it quick. This won't be quick." His eyes glittered. "It will be exquisite." Jenny's voice shook. "How did you get out?" she stammered. "The sedatives." "Wore off," he said. "Or something woke me up. It's hard to tell. Time has gone all funny. Might have been minutes, might have been hours." He stepped forward. I stepped back. "Tom, please," I said. "We can still..." "Still what?" he asked, amused. "Save me? I'm better now, stronger. I can feel all of them out here." He tapped his temple with one grey finger. "Every one of them, humming like bees. And something else behind it all. Something big." His smile stretched wider. "It's talking to us," he whispered. "Not with words, with pulls, with wants. And I'm talking back." He took another step. Jenny grabbed my arm. "Shoot him," she hissed. "For God's sake, Nathan, shoot him." My finger tightened on the trigger. Tom stopped. For the first time since he's turned, the smile faltered. "If you shoot me," he said quietly, "they'll all come in. All of them. The big thing will make them. It doesn't like losing pieces." He nodded towards the walls, where distant thuds were already starting to echo. "Fence is almost down," he added cheerfully. "You haven't got long." "What do you want then?" I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. He grinned again. "I want you to come with me," he said simply. "Both of you. You're interesting. The rest are just noise. But you're bright. It would like you." Jenny made a strangled sound. "I'd rather die," she spat. Tom's eyes softened. "You might," he said, "but you won't stay that way." The thuds grew louder. Somewhere, glass shattered. Screams rose from the main hall. Jenny looked at me. "We can't let him near the others," she said. "If he can control them." I didn't let myself think about it. I just pulled the trigger. The rifle kicked against my shoulder. The shot was deafening in the small room. Tom jerked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small, neat hole appeared in the centre of his chest. He looked down at it, almost curious. "Oh," he said, "that stings." Then he laughed. "See," he added, "not quick at all." He stepped towards us, blood blossoming across his shirt like a flower. Behind him, somewhere deep in the building, something heavy hit the doors hard enough to make the frame shake. The fence had fallen, and they were inside. I don't remember much of what happened next. Flashes, running, door after door slamming. Jenny screaming at people to move, to scatter, to get out any way they could. The wet sound of bodies colliding in the dark, the metallic smell of blood. I remember losing sight of Jenny in the crush near the fire exit. I remember someone falling. I remember not going back for them. I remember one last glimpse of Tom at the far end of the corridor, moving through the chaos like a shark through a shoal of fish, teeth bared in that endless grin. He wasn't snapping blindly the way others did. He was choosing, directing. He was pointing with his eyes. The infected followed his gaze like dogs on a lead. I got out through the broken window in Gents. I ran until my lungs burned. I hid in a bin store behind the supermarket until the sky lightened. When I finally crept back to the leisure centre from a distance, the place was silent. The fences were down, the doors hung open, no movement, no survivors. Just a few dark streaks on the tarmac, already drying. And now, 3 days. That's how long it's been since the centre fell. 3 nights of sleeping in cupboards and sheds, listening to distant screams, watching the streets from behind cracked blinds. And every night they come. Not in huge numbers, not in a horde, just a handful at a time, wandering the road outside whatever building I've holed up in. They don't bash at the doors, they don't paw at the windows, they just loiter, waiting, listening. And then, sometime around the darkest part of the night, one of them steps forward. A grey face appears at the glass, cloudy eyes, and a wide, fixed, blood-creaked smile. It's not always Tom's face. Sometimes it's a woman, sometimes it's a boy, sometimes someone I recognise from the centre. But the smile is always the same. Too wide, too eager, too aware. Tonight, it's him again. Tom, standing outside the locked doors of the little community centre I've holed up in, forehead pressed to the glass, teeth bared. The others hang back in the shadows behind him. He taps the glass once. "Found you," he mouths. I can't hear the words, but I know what he's saying. Because I can feel something now too. A faint buzzing at the back of my skull. A pressure behind my eyes, like a storm building. Like someone, somewhere far away, is smiling. I raise the rifle. My hands shake. He meets my eyes for a fraction of a second. Just a sliver. The grin softens. His brow drags together in something like sympathy. Then the smile snaps back into place. He tilts his head, inviting. There are only 3 bullets left. If I shoot him, he'll get back up, or something else will take his place. If I shoot myself, maybe I'll stop hearing the buzzing. But I can't help thinking about what he said, tied to that bench. Still me in here, you know. What if that's true? What if the infection doesn't wipe you out at all? What if it just adds something? What if, somewhere under that grin, Tom is still watching, still waiting, still hoping I'll step outside and join the song he hears every time his heart doesn't beat? His hand presses flat to the glass, slowly, almost lazily. The other shapes behind him do the same. Dozens of grey hands, dozens of fixed smiles in the dark. I lower the rifle, just a little. Enough that, if you were watching from the outside, you might think I was considering it. But the awful truth is, I am. Not because I want to die, but because I want to understand. Because if they're learning, if they're talking to something bigger, then this isn't the end of the world. It's just the beginning of whatever comes next. Tom's smile widens, as if he's heard the thought, as if he's pleased, as if we're sharing a joke again. The glass between us trembles with the weight of all those hands. My grip tightens on the rifle. I take one step towards the door. Just one. His eyes light up. He isn't growling. He isn't snarling. He's waiting. And somewhere, behind the cloudy surface of those eyes, something large and patient and hungry is waiting with them, listening, learning, smiling. I stop. I take a breath, and I make my choice.